Excellent. Hello. It is Friday the 10th, and we are meeting here as a Climate Solutions Caucus.
Oops.
Oh, well, she's not.
Wrong button.
All right. It's Sarah's hazing me. We are meeting as the Climate Solutions Caucus, and she'd like to get back in. Okay, good. So we do have an exciting agenda. We'll let Sarah repopulate here. And here comes another couple of people. Sarah, you back?
I'm back. I don't know where I just got zoomed off to, but thanks for letting me back in.
Sure, I'd be lost without you. So we were thinking that our agenda would be start by talking about next week on December 15th. We're doing an event. We need your help. We had a great meeting the other day with leadership, Sarah and I. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the climate plan a little bit. I'm sure everybody's read all of that. And then just finish by talking about our expectation in terms of meeting during session. Yeah.
Little light reading for you all. Tony in the copy room is more than happy to make you a paper copy if you, like me, would like to sit with your coffee in the morning and read through the climate plan instead of scrolling on your device. Andy Perchlik, you get the prize for the coolest background today. I like it. Very nice. All right, so Chris, anything else on the agenda, or should I dive right into the 15th?
I think we have a lot to do. You might as well jump in.
All right. So December 15th, we are holding a town hall style public meeting. This is sort of in to substitute for, the roadshow kind of events that we've done in the past. It's not really very safe to meet in person at this point. And so we got a little bit of technical support from our advocate friends who are going to help us do a town hall style meeting with breakout groups that we'll do by region. And so the format of the meeting we'll try to stick, to an hour and a half like we did when we were doing our in-person meetings. It may be shorter. But Chris and I thought what we would do is a little presentation of the climate plan, sort of a quick recap of how we got here, what's included in the plan that we can see on the horizon for priorities for 2022. And then what we'd like to do is break into regional breakout groups. And so when we do regional breakout groups, we'll need to assign somebody to be sort of the facilitator of that. And the idea is you and people from around your area so that you can talk with your constituents, would be able to go into the breakout rooms and do a little Q&A after the presentation. So in order for us to organize, or in order for us to have people to come to all those breakout rooms, I need you to forward the invitation, the registration link that was included in the email that got you to today's meeting. Forward that out to your lists. Share it on.
I don't think it was.
Oh, it wasn't?
Gotten so I'll send an email to. I think we gave like a heads up, but I haven't actually seen the.
I've seen it somewhere, but maybe it was in our newsletter.
Yeah, it is in the newsletter, but let me make sure to send a separate email to the caucus listserv for folks about that.
And Sarah, would you remind us of the time frame?
Is it
7 or 7:30.
Hold on, I've got it in my calendar.
That's great. So it's later. Good.
Yeah, since nobody has to drive home.
7:30 would be great.
It starts at 7, and Allison, you can skip our intro at the beginning and just come in time for the breakout groups at 7.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, I just have to.
It's also posted to the Vermont Climate Caucus Facebook page. That's an easy way to share it. So please do. We want that. This is unfortunately one event where a few years ago, I think we did a dozen. but that's the reality of our life these days. So it's important that we get people the opportunity to join us.
Our advocacy friends also kind of they're circulating this to their lists and stuff too, right?
Yep, they
So
sure
good
are.
incentive beyond all the folks that we can drum up. Like it seems like there will be an audience for this, so good incentive for us to attend if we can as members.
And you need people from each region to step forward to facilitate? How are you going to do?
Yes, so nuts and bolts. I need you to, the first set of nuts and bolts while Chris is eating his lunch. I need you, if you're coming on Wednesday, to email me and Chris with an answer, yes, I'm coming. Yes or no, I've shared this with my lists, and yes or no, I'd like to be in a regional breakout room. And we know where you all live, so we'll try to piece together the state enough that everybody gets a breakout room in their region. And we will be letting the folks at VPIRG who are doing the behind the scenes work on our actual town meeting, we'll let them know what the regions are, so that when people have registered and said, you know, I live in Addison, we'll send send those people over to that region. So Chris.
And just the outline is that Sarah and I will kick it off and give people an overview of the climate plan. And then we'll break into roughly regional discussions where you all will get the chance to interact with folks and help Q&A. You know, I mean, I'm assuming questions will arise after we run through the beginnings of or a quick summary of the climate plan. When we're in those breakout groups, you know, the way I think about it, if you remember a few years ago, part of the roadshow was sort of saying, here's some important work, and we acknowledge that it's not enough. We're not doing everything. We can't possibly do everything. We meet for 4.5 months. So we're trying, and we're going to ask your help, and it's important to have some discipline, in my opinion, of kind of sticking with what we actually expect we can accomplish. And we're not, you know, our ambitions for this coming session are not timid, but not by a long shot. But they don't include everything that every climate activist has dreamed up here and across the country. So we're asking all of you to help, and we're going to talk about it more today and then next Wednesday as well, kind of help people get focused on what we think is doable and important and will be accomplished this year. And we really need your help. But this is just, you know, our experience a couple of years ago was it worked in that it helped orient people, because the climate is such an amorphous challenge. So anyway, does that make sense? We're just going to ask for everybody here to join us and try to help us, and therefore the public be quite disciplined about the approach. I mean, obviously we'll field any question that people have, and sometimes the answer is going to have to be no, but we're fairly confident that the agenda is ambitious enough that people will only be frustrated. You know, they'll be excited about what we're trying to do. Right, Sarah?
Yes, and so, you know, I want to point out a few of the things that we can expect we might hear from people, and implore you to help refocus people to what is on the agenda and achievable in 2022. Inevitably, somebody's going to say, well, since TCI is dead, you got to pass a carbon tax, right? That's, you know, that is going to be the inevitable that somebody will say. And I think it would be most helpful for us to acknowledge that TCI is sort of in stasis at the moment. and urge people to be patient and wait and see what happens. TCI has the most potential. In fact, some would say the sole potential to make our 2025 goals achievable. And so we don't want to give up on it until we know for sure that it is not a regional possibility. And with changes in administration in our neighboring states in 2022, you never know what might happen. And Selena.
I wondered, I really appreciated, don't see her today, but I really appreciated Representative White's question at the briefing on Wednesday about, she said, okay, like if TCI is off the table, are you looking at any other regional compacts that we might join? And so I wonder if kind of broadening it out a little bit beyond like TCI to like, we need to be in a regional compact around that's going to help us with transportation emissions. And if it's not TCI, there may be other options. And the administrative, like our goal is, TCI is the ideal because it really is our region and it is focused on transportation. But I wonder if just sort of starting to frame the message a little differently, so it's not so linked to the success or failure of one initiative.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mike Yantachka.
On the December 15th thing, is that a Facebook event or is that going to have its own separate Zoom?
It's going to have its own separate Zoom, and folks will need to pre-register in order to join that Zoom. So sharing that registration link is important.
Did we get that registration link yet, or?
Yes, but we'll send it again and I'll put it in the chat in just a minute.
All right, thank you.
Andy Perchlik.
Thank you. I just wanted to say on TCI, I don't think we should talk about it as being dead. Just that it's in some kind of, it's tabled, but it's not dead. My hope in that it will help us reach our 2030 goals, that we would be able to revive it for discussion in 2023.
Yep, makes perfect sense. So I was going through a list of things that we might hear from activists in these breakout groups and a suggestion of how to pivot off of them. So this is a good set of recommendations on how to talk about TCI. Gabrielle. And
sorry, too many buttons. I do have a couple of bills being drafted, and I'm hoping regarding TCI, and I'm hoping that it at least, or one is regarding TCI and one is regarding sort of a more general piece about how we might use funding if we were to receive it, and how we would ensure that it was equitably distributed throughout Vermont. And hopefully we'll be able to take some testimony on it, because it's a conversation that will take time regardless.
So,
yes. And Chris, have you read far enough into the plan that you've seen how TCI was framed in the climate action plan?
Yeah, so we mean to move into this in a couple agenda items, but of course, I'll just say quickly to Gabrielle's point, it's a good one. The climate action plan is a mandate on us. That's how we set it up, and joke's on us. Now we got to do the work. One of them, one of the directives is to imagine how we would receive TCI funds were it in full force, and distribute them equitably. So I there's some timeline wiggle room, but the legislature must do that. We otherwise we are in violation of the Global Warming Solutions Act. So that's a great example, Gabrielle, as a step. It's also a good example for your point, Andy. We're not counting this out, but the reality is right now it's a little less viable than it was a few months ago, even when it was a bit shaky. So the point is we'll talk about this. We'll talk about it in our next agenda item here as we met with leadership and sort of tried to populate the calendar of the issues that we're going to deal with this session. And again, it's an exciting and ambitious agenda. And we just would ask that you help bring people back to that, as opposed to, taking too much time on the wish list stuff, which is, I say this as somebody who has introduced a lot of wish list stuff over my time in the legislature. It's important. That serves an important role. But to my mind, we're at a kind of all hands on deck. We have 4.5 months to really kick off an amplified response to climate emergency in Vermont. And that's going to take a lot of discipline. And it's going to mean some important issues don't get addressed in the 4 months that we're working.
Two other things that are common themes that we hear from some of our activist friends that I would hope we can sort of also redirect. And that is around, we should shut down every nuclear generating plant, and we should declare Hydro-Quebec as non-renewable. And those are things that have been pushed actively by many of our advocacy groups that we know and love. But we need to remind ourselves again, as Chris said, we've got 4.5 months. We've got some really important things to do. And all of the things that are on our to-do list have more potential to reduce our emissions that we are responsible for as a state than to wade into issues around Hydro-Quebec or nuclear. When we talk in a moment about renewable energy, Chris is going to touch on HQ and the pivot that is very logical to start talking to people about the bridge to genuine renewable energy and an increase in renewable energy in the state. I think that's enough on December 15th. Chris, should we talk next about our meeting with leadership? So when we were in the State House for the joint fiscal briefing, the speaker and the pro tem were kind enough to give us a few minutes. What we said to them basically was, we understand the urgency of moving these climate priorities. We have been and continue to be in contact with the committee chairs in the House and the Senate to move forward with our climate priorities. What more would you like us to do? How can we help? And how can we keep our climate caucus members value added as we move into this legislative session? Jim Maslin has a question.
Yep. Just to comment on HQ, I've got a bill, haven't seen it yet, or maybe I have, I don't know, haven't asked for extra sponsors. That would just decrease the amount of HQ power that's considered to be renewable by 10% a year. And the reason is, I'm not sure it'll go anywhere at all, but to use it as a discussion point on what it is and what it is not, and as a stimulus for more renewable energy in state. Thanks.
Kurt McCormick.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to look at the agenda for today. Will there be a time where we can tell the caucus of other legislation that we're working on? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
As I did.
Chris, anything else you want to add on our great discussion with leadership?
Yeah, so I would just say, the fact that Sarah and I now twice this off session have sat with both the speaker and the pro tem and the majority leaders, I see you, Allison, were there as well the other day, is a testament to the hard work that all of us are doing, and the fact that climate is, not an afterthought, right? And in fact, so it was just on it before we said a word, exciting, and a promising move forward. We crudely agreed to, Sarah, should I just run through the list of issues? You've all heard over, and many of you are active in the transportation kind of set of priorities that particularly House Transportation has kicked off. That's a part of it. We know there's this clean heat standard, and we're going to have to dig into that at another time, but that's a clear recommendation coming out of the climate plan that is expected to get underway. There's an environmental justice or just transition bill that's been discussed at length, I think both now in the House and Senate. That is anticipated to move. There's the effort of weatherization at scale, also anticipated to move. An update to the renewable energy standard, which would, I believe, and I've been active in getting this drafted, represents REV and Green Mountain Power coming together and sort of hammering out and presenting as a coalition willing to do this. You'll remember a few years ago we advanced, but we didn't get far and COVID shut us down. But it was interesting. Green Mountain Power at that time had opposed basically what we were doing. This time they basically came to the table with that as a starting point. It would include going just a straightforward 100% renewable by 2030. It would more than double our in-state small renewable. It would also cap HQ, and to your point, Maz, something like this, cap HQ at the amount of power purchased today. So that doesn't diminish HQ, although if we all accept that we're going to electrify and drive up demand, it would cap them, not as a percentage, but in terms of the kilowatts that are delivered now. So those are main elements. There's sort of a tweak to tier 1. We call it tier 1A that allows for, in addition to beefing up tier 2, which is small in-state renewable, it would allow for larger in-state or out-of-state renewable. So, the drive needs to be new power generation, not go find some other decrepit dams and call that renewable. But we've got to be part of the market pressure to build offshore wind, to build, some of those larger renewable projects. So that was the RES. Remains to be seen if the coalition will hold, but there's also a push to help municipalities do their own work, like we have for the state SEMP program, be extending both through technical support and maybe some grant funding for municipalities. And then just quickly, overarching all of these issues are workforce. And I know a lot of us have been thinking about that, and we can never take our eye off that ball, because the best policies in the world with all the money doesn't put boots on the ground. And then how do we spend the money? So we tend, and the climate plan itself tends to be focused on policy, but we have a lot of money that we're all agreed needs to be working towards our climate emission reduction. And how do we do that? Who's going to do that work? And finally, what is the kind of state infrastructure and actually partners out around the state? A lot of us believe we need a climate director, somebody in state governments uniquely focused on this, not this among a large suite of things, and they need experts with them. This is not a part-time, write a couple of grants kind of work. This is and Mary Hooper, I think, jumped on here, but Mary said it very well to me. She said, this isn't a one-year budget issue. This is how do we set ourselves up for a successful couple of decades of work, because that is the mindset that we need. So Sarah and I ran that by the leadership and kind of said, can we tell people this is more or less realistic? Like, this is what we're shooting for? Does everything go our way? Of course not. And held our breath, I would say, for myself anyway. And the answer was, yeah, this is the right place to start. So I do think that, and we'll be glad to get this in writing as it fleshes out a little bit. And as y'all read the climate plan, you'll see elements of this, and then other maybe smaller elements that will also need to be included. But this is, if we push those investments out, if we set up state government with a climate director, if we're helping municipalities do their work, we're upgrading our renewable energy standard to hit 100% renewable, and we're pushing weatherization to scale. I've already forgot some. That's a pretty big deal. That represents a very, very significant load of work and things that frankly all of us have been fighting for in one way or another over the years. And so what have I forgotten, Sarah?
Couple things that we want to come back to, just acknowledging that one of the really big parts of workforce, particularly in our building and thermal area, is that we still need to bring the contractor registry across the line. That is going to be the way we even know who that workforce is right now, let alone get out there and start offering them additional training and whatnot, so that they can be part of the boots on the ground to help us achieve our climate goals. And so contractor registry is close to getting across the line, and hopefully that's something that we can make as a priority as well.
It's back in the House. We passed it back to you in our veto session.
Yep.
Oh, good.
So off and running. It was a really heartening meeting with leadership, and I think we're really looking forward to being able to pull together and be in alignment together. So what I want to do now for a few minutes before we hit the 1 o'clock stop time is I want to ask about things that you're working on, and I want to ask it very intentionally in two different ways. I want to ask how many of you would like to, give us a 30-second overview of a bill that you have in motion, that you've talked with your chair about, that you expect is something climate related that is already sort of on somebody's agenda, something that that maybe didn't make our list, but that is a priority of one of the chairs. So who's Kurt McCormick has his hand up, but maybe on a different matter. So be thinking about, what bills do you have in motion that you think are climate related that you already have a chair talking about? Go ahead, Kurt. Oh, Kurt, you didn't unmute. You did put your hand down though.
How much you can get off before you're told that they can't hear you. Sorry about that. First, I wanted to say that thank you, Sarah, for the comments about the contractor registration, because I wasn't crazy about that bill. You may have just given me at least one little reason why I can feel a little better about voting for it when it comes back to the House. So let me say quickly, I have a bill on HFCs, and I am working with the chair. The committee that would have most of this bill would actually be natural resources and water, and I'm not a member of that committee. But I've talked to the chair and she likes it. So HFCs are hydrofluorocarbons. They are the chemicals that replaced CFCs, which were so bad for the ozone layer and also very bad for climate. And the HFCs are very bad for climate also. And the alternative is not bad for climate or the ozone layer at all. And they're called HFOs, but HFCs are being phased in rather quickly by industry, but not so much by the government. So I did a resolution in at NCSL that Sarah, you know about, that tries to speed up EPA. And Sarah, I'm happy to report to you that EPA has already agreed with this chemical for trucks. So I think we had some rather rapid impact for a change down there. So the bill in Vermont, I'm working very closely with industry, that kind of the national industry, and also our local car dealers and truck dealers. This is a bill that I think people will be holding hands with together in the end, I hope. We're just trying to speed up the schedule of the phase down of these things. There's no reason to wait. If you buy a new car today, it likely does not have HFOs as the coolant for the air conditioning. But if you buy a big truck, it does. So that was the issue, Sarah, in Tampa and NCSL, and it's the same issue here. So we're just trying to speed things up, working with industry to speed the government up. And so that they can approve these things and get them out there and get rid of the HFCs. That's one. Then another one, as you know, we're having a lot of money coming into the federal transportation programs. And a position that I plan to take in our committee, in the transportation committee, is we don't need to spend any more money on highways other than to maintain them like we have been. You know, no new capacity, no more maintenance than we already do. We should do less winter maintenance. Already there's too much salt being used this winter. And I want to see as much of that money as we are allowed to flex into what I would call climate transportation or climate-related transportation. And we can talk later about what all those things might be. But they're nothing new. Charging stations, EV incentives, bike lanes, free transit, those things. You know, I think we're going to find that the best strategy is going to be no sticks, only carrots. And this is a year that we can do that.
I love that. No sticks, only carrots. Andy Perchlick.
What about carrot sticks? Yeah, I have a bill. It's in Senate.
That's a good dad joke.
It's in Senate Transportation, Senate Institutions. So maybe I need to talk to Senator McCormick some more, but I've talked a little bit to the chair there, but I've had good discussions with folks in the administration and that own buildings. And the bill would require any heating system that fails, that needs to be replaced, or a new heating system be a renewable heating system. And that could include biodiesel. That's just basically what it is. It's what I consider stop digging. You know, we're in a hole, let's stop digging. So no more fossil fuel heating systems, but instead of requiring they all get changed out, it's as they need to be changed out, they have to be changed out by a renewable system. And I'm hoping to raise the profile of that bill to get the committee to take it up. And I'm working with Commissioner Fitch to get her support. I have support with other people within the administration that own buildings and operate buildings, but not to the point where they can say so publicly, unfortunately.
Great work. Thank you. Allison Clarkson.
Chris, first of all, dormant. I think maybe that's the word we need to use with TCI. Dormant. It's dormant, like a mouse. If Chris and I have so some of you were on earlier when Chris and I were talking about our divestment bill, but we do have a bill in to ask the pension funds and any funds actually that the state manages divest of fossil fuels. We've had this bill in for years and we've never gotten very far with the treasurer. Now is our moment, we think. I have a call into Ann Cummings to discuss it. We're on the road, but that will be being introduced and we'll obviously be looking for co-sponsors in the Senate.
Excellent. Molly Burke.
Yeah, I think a number of people have been hearing about our Transportation Innovation Act that we've been working on with a group of us from House Transportation, and our chair is totally aware of what we're doing and on board, and we're strategizing, and it's a bill that has a lot of things, mainly, increased amounts of money for our incentive programs, requiring school and transit bus purchases to be zero emission vehicles. It's more money to the Mobility and Transportation Innovation Grant Program, just a lot of things. And we will be looking for a lot of co-sponsors in the same way that we got 74 co-sponsors last year for our other sort of omnibus bill. I think we're certainly going to have a meeting with House Transportation, all the members, on Tuesday. So it'll be interesting to see what the conversation is around this, or whether we're going to have conversation around it. Anyway, it's been a really exciting process, and we hope that we can really make some big progress with cutting transportation emissions through this bill. Whether it's going to be the T-bill, or some of it might be part of the T-bill, and some of it might go to a whole climate bill that goes through the House. I think there's a lot of questions up in the air about how things are going to proceed, but anyway.
Thanks, Molly. Great work on that. Kurt McCormick. Is your hand back up for another bill?
No, I wasn't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Scott Campbell.
Yes, hi, everyone. I do have a companion bill to Andy's and on the House side to call for state buildings to use renewable heating systems. And I've added a few things to it. I got a draft back just a few days ago, and I need to respond to Budget Council about it. But I'll be seeking co-sponsors of that, of course. I also have a short form in that would make the Division of Fire Safety, which enforces all of the building codes, electric and plumbing and heating and all that sort of thing, and make them the authority having jurisdiction for energy codes. Because right now, I've talked about this before, but to remind you, right now we don't have any statewide authority having jurisdiction. So there's no one administering the codes, and there's no one available to adjudicate conflicts between codes. No one to call for interpretation. So we'll see how that goes. I'm thinking, I've talked, I don't know if I've talked with you, Sarah, about this before, but I'm thinking that maybe this is a study committee kind of thing, because it's pretty complicated getting the Public Service Department, which develops codes, and the Division of Fire Safety, which I've actually proposed to be renamed Division of Fire and Building Safety, in the Department of Public Safety, to get them out of their silos and working together. So there are a lot of details to work out. It sounds like it's pretty complicated to get off across the line itself this year, but if we got a study committee and had something to work with next year, that seems like that would be a good start.
Chris.
I'm going to say this all session. We have to stay disciplined. So Sarah very clearly asked, let's hear from bills that your chair is basically putting on the agenda. And we will have time to brainstorm together. And Scott, I'm not picking on you because you're not the only one, but we really need to, we don't have a full day here. We got a few minutes left. So we want to hear about those bills where you've already done some organizing and we're likely to actually take testimony on.
Sarah Coffey.
I should add just one. I haven't talked to my chair about this bill yet because I just got the copy, Andy's bill, but I have talked with members of my committee, although not Sarah, I don't think. So.
All right, Sarah Coffey.
So I sit on the House Corrections and Institutions side of things, and I don't have a specific bill, but we've been having conversations with the chair of, with Tim Brinklin, who I see is not here, but we've been having conversations with him, with my chair and I, about what programs currently exist and what we could do to augment them. And there are a few programs within BGS. So to speak to Senator Perchlick's idea, I think it'd be good for us to chat and to find out where we don't need to stand up a new program, but could actually pour money into it with some of this one-time money. So I just wanted to let folks know, I personally think there's a lot of possibility in the capital bill that where we could get creative. So.
Excellent. And Dick McCormick.
Thanks. I've heard from Senator Bray, who, as you know, chairs Natural Resources and Energy, and he's regarding the whole issue of climate as a priority. So these bills will be looked at if they get as far as our committee.
Excellent. Well, we'll be counting on you. I know that a lot of things funnel into the Senate Natural Resources side from a couple different committees. So we'll send you all of our strength and focus, and any extra hours in the day we have, we'll cede to you so that you guys can get that work done. Sarita, and then we'll shift gears.
Okay, just a quick update. Act 72 in the Education Committee is a facilities inventory. And that should be coming back to us this session. And what I noted, I've just been reading a lot of different reports about funding, but my understanding, I think there's a $90 million surplus that the governor is proposing possibly to put a portion of that to reducing taxes, but another portion to paying for school construction or, whatever this report finds. So I think that would be a really good opportunity for weatherization to look at some of the climate actions that can be taken to reduce the loss of thermal energy.
Excellent. I understand that surplus is due in large part to robust rooms and meals and sales tax. So let's think of that as a good way to invest in our aging infrastructure.
Hey, Sarah or Chris, could I also ask whether it would be useful to mention fuel switching in the process of that reconstruction, whether it's just weatherization? Fuel switching for large plants like that is just a cherry waiting to be picked. Thanks.
Right, absolutely. So many places and opportunities for us to get involved in our local communities as well, because your town energy committees should be coordinating with your school and municipal governing bodies to help move this along. So yeah, let's switch gears now. That was a great rundown of some folks that are some bills that folks are working on with their favorite chairs. And so hopefully those are off and running. We have, Chris and I have an exciting meeting on Sunday that we were invited to come and talk with the youth lobby. So this is the young people who maybe many of whom were not yet involved in this group when they passed their climate emergency declaration and had their climate congress at the State House back in 2019 that really launched the passage of the Global Warming Solutions Act. But it is the next generation of those young people. And so if you have young people in your circles who are passionate about climate, make sure they know about the Youth Climate Lobby. Chris and I will go speak with them on Sunday at their organizing meeting. So we're really excited about doing that. Before we end today, I just wanted to let folks know about what our Climate Solutions Caucus meeting schedule will be during the session. Since we are back in the building, we will be meeting every other Thursday at noon, like we did the last time we were together. But our meetings will be in room 267 over in the Pavilion building. And so I think that's where all of the issue caucuses are going to be meeting at lunchtime. And Chris and I will talk to our advocate friends about whether they plan to provide pizza for us, since it will be a little easier not to schlep stuff from the cafeteria over to the Pavilion building. But we're going to meet from 12 to 1, and our first meeting will be on the 13th of January, and then every other Thursday after that. So please put the 13th and every other subsequent Thursday on your schedule. And also, I just wanted to give a pitch. If any of you are members of other issue caucuses, if you could ask them to schedule opposite us instead of scheduling on top of us, that would be awesome. I know that when we used to meet every single week, we had a couple of other caucuses who were really vying for time, and we ended up with a lot of people telling us that they weren't able to come to Climate Solutions Caucus because they needed to go to another caucus. So spread the word. We're doing every other week to make it available, make Thursdays available for other caucuses on the opposite week, and that would be great. Students can find out more about the Youth Climate Lobby. Question in the chat about, you can direct kids to Instagram and Facebook. That's where I'm seeing their stuff promoted.
Great. And I'll just jump in and say, if you haven't already, please do look at the climate action plan. It is the result of your hard work, all of our hard work, in the end of the what I think of as the pandemic session, having to override that. You may have heard that the folks in the administration sent out a press release after the plan was approved, complaining about it, but half of their members voted for it. So we should not fall into that trap, in my opinion. And you know, more and more folks mentioned HFCs. I think that was Kurt mentioned HFCs. You know, we had a bill a few years ago that banned them in new construction. So that's already underway. Now the Biden administration has made that nationwide, and now we have to sort of accelerate it. But I think of this as a good example. Like our early action, we might have said years ago was hard for businesses. Actually, what we did gave them a leg up, right? So they have a head start compared to businesses in New Hampshire. And so I think more and more we can talk about this, and people more broadly are seeing these as opportunities in the sense of growing our economy, transitioning away from fossil fuels. So look at the climate plan. I encourage you to look at there. It's 200 some pages, but you can skip through. They've put all the action items into tables. So you can just, if you're like me, you're a visual person, you skip through, oh, there's a table, and things are clearly labeled action. And not only will you find it interesting, I think, and maybe somewhat hopeful, but we all have to be responsible for many of those actions do call on the legislature. Some of them have a timeline where we maybe don't have to focus on it this year. Some of them are multi-years. But again, as we crafted the law with accountability, we are responsible for the legislative action that's called for in the action items. There's more than just action items, but where they are action, I think we would say the accountability mechanism of a potential citizen suit does demand that we act on them. You know, I'd love to also spend time next time we meet hearing what what reaction we're getting from around the state on this. Next week at our public forum, we'll clearly get direct feedback, what you all think. There's work ahead. The introduction acknowledges that this is only the first of many pieces of intense work to come, but pretty solid footing, I would say, and somewhat encouraging. So I'd encourage you to read that. You don't have to do all 200 pages. Look for the tables where the action items are summarized. Kurt?
Chris, how do we see, can you give us the link, or how do we get to the climate plan?
And can I just say, Kurt, it's great to see you looking so well.
That's because I'm not wearing glasses. I look like Paul Newman again, don't you think?
Really, I think all of us are so proud of you as you battle this, and you look very well.
Yes, that's what everyone says. Yep. So how do we get to the climate?
I'm getting it for you here.
Okay.
Chris will put it in the link, and then you can click the link before we close the meeting down. And just a reminder, the 3 little dots down in the chat, in your chat box, those 3 little dots have a menu item that says save chat. If you're ever in a meeting where you see a lot of links that you want to be able to check out later, you can always save the chat.
Oh, that's so cool. I never did that.
You learn something new every day. Mike Antachka.
Yeah, so you mentioned your meeting that you and Chris have with the young folks. And is that something we should push out on our social media and stuff?
They're pushing it out certainly on social media.
Okay, so that got it covered.
Yeah, well, I mean, it never hurts to push it out more. VPIRG is promoting it as well because they're helping to organize the youth. And the meeting is actually at Sun Common in Waterbury. So So it'll be a central Vermont location.
Okay, and then the December 15th one, you want that pushed out as much as possible as well, right?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Yep, and you'll see the registration link to that in the chat way back up at the beginning.
Yep, got it.
Great.
Thanks.
Dave Iacovone.
Thank you, Sarah. Very quickly here. Sarah, regarding one-time funds, I don't want to assume anything, but to your knowledge, has leadership or anyone said to the Energy and Technology Committee, there's X amount of one-time dollars, here's your share for climate, you need to package together recommendations for considerations to the appropriations process? Is that occurring?
That was not part of our discussion with leadership the other day in terms of getting down to that fine-grained detail. I think there are a lot of demands on what we might do with that one-time money, including childcare, the pension system, as well as climate and housing. Chris, do you have any more intel?
Well, I would just say I don't have a direct answer, David, but we passed it in the budget. All of us voted for it, and it is included in the budget, a fence around $250 million for climate. So I don't think, the way I think of that is we don't have to redecide that. Now we have to figure out where and how to actually get the money out the door. That's where the boots on the grounds kind of thing is no small hurdle.
That's ARPA money that you're talking about.
It is, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? There are reams of people trying to figure out how to make it work.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Selena.
Well, I was just going to make a really quick announcement, if possible, at the end of the meeting, not an official climate caucus thing, but I circulated a letter about the Global Foundries Public Utilities Commission application, and many of you signed on, and I heard from some of you also who were going to hold off, but I just wanted to say it's final hour. So that came through the Climate Caucus listserv recently, and if you want to be on the letter, you just need to let me know in the next 20 minutes or so.
Right.
All right. So
That's my final reminder.
But there are a couple of them on this call that would be great to respond to Selena if you haven't.
Yes.
Yes, so email Selena if you want on that letter, and email me and Chris if you are coming on Wednesday night and are willing to be one of the hosts of a breakout room. So we'll keep an eye on our email and see you all on Wednesday. I think